Now, whilst our app here works as expected, we can all take this a step further. For example, we'll soon move this logic here out of this file, but before we do that, I'll go back to the filter start file and there to the filters screen. What we're doing here at the moment is the following. We're reading our filters provider data here in init state to initialize our local state, which we need to manage to reflect these changes that are made to the filters as users click these switches. This makes sense and works, but we could also get rid of this local state and simply manage everything in the provider and simply update this filters screen widget whenever data in the provider changes to then update the switch status on the UI. So put in other words, instead of updating local state here when a switch is pressed, we could simply update that filter in the provider and then re-render the UI to reflect those changes on the switch. And that's what I want to do next. Therefore, to do that, I'll get rid of these properties and actually of the entire state class, because now we won't need a stateful widget anymore, because now the goal is to no longer manage any local state here. Therefore, we can get rid of all of that, and instead of extending consumer stateful widget, we now just extend consumer widget. So we can vastly simplify this here. We can also get rid of init state, again simplifying this all. And now here, I'll also get rid of this commented out code to make this a bit leaner. In the build method, we must now accept this second argument, widgetRef, or of type widgetRef, to be precise, since we're now extending consumer widget. So since we now essentially have a stateless widget here. And with those changes made, we can now also get rid of will pop scope, because now instead of only updating the filters as the user navigates away, I'll simply update them every time a switch is clicked. So we can get rid of this and directly return our column here instead as a body. Of course, we also must get rid of the unnecessary closing parentheses, therefore. And now with all those changes made, we can go to our switches, like this one here. And when this switch is pressed, I now want to use my ref here to read my filters provider state. Here again, read, because we're in such an event handler function here in the end, a function passed to onChanged. So here I read, and then I access my notifier, and then here I call set filter, not set filters, but set filter, because I want to set a single filter. And here that would be the gluten-free filter, which I'll set to is checked. So whatever value was selected by the user. Of course, I also must update the value now, because this local state is no longer available. But of course, we have this ref object here. So at the beginning of the build method, we can use that to watch our filters provider. And here we want to use watch instead of read, because watch sets up a listener that re-executes the build method whenever the state in the provider changes. So whenever a filter changes, for example. And I want to re-execute the build method in that case to update my switch tiles correctly. So here I get my active filters, if we want to call it like this, which is this map of filter data. And then here, for the value of the gluten-free filter, I can simply access active filters for filter gluten-free, like this. And add an exclamation mark to tell Dart that this will not be null, which I know it won't, because we'll always have a value inside of our provider state. So that's the first switch list tile, and we can now use the same approach for all those list tiles. Copy value and onChanged. And then here for the second switch list tile, for the lactose-free one, I'll paste this in and simply access lactose-free and update lactose-free. And then copy and paste this again here for the next one, for the vegetarian, this one. And of course also update this accordingly. And then do this for the last one here, where I access the vegan filter and update this one, vegan. And with that, we made this widget, this filters screen widget, way leaner because now we're outsourcing the state to the provider, and we can therefore use a stateless widget effectively, and we don't need to manage or initialize any local state. As you will see, if you save everything and restart the app, it still works as before though. If I check gluten-free, I still don't see the pasta here. So that is working as it should. My filters are saved and updated as expected, but now all done through the provider.